That's about it.
On bonus, so you show.
You got all the time you need, Brian.
No, I don't.
We love you, Brian.
Box has to set up right.
Yeah.
I did something right.
I'm not showing my tails if you're in the bell.
No, that's not what the bell is for.
That is actually what it says on the bell.
Yes, but we didn't buy this bell. Then it doesn't sound.
Right. Right.
We can just get more. It is 9:30 on a Thursday night, and you are tuned into Beltway Radio and Beyond, which can mean one and only thing. This is ChipChat. Welcome to ChipChat, everybody. I am Chip. Tez is not here tonight. So if you tuned in for him, which is probably most of you, sorry. However, we do have a co-host. That's Stacy. If you're listening, you haven't heard her yet. Don't worry, she's coming. This week, we're going to have a special episode. We always have a special episode. It's always a special edition. But we have had, let's say, a recurring series, you and I, about curling themed shows here on ChipChat. So that's kind of interesting. This week specifically, we are going to talk about women in curling. Did you know that women in curling?
I realized that you just found out.
I just found that out. It's hard for them because there's angles. So also, we're going to talk to some amazing people about curling and women and all of those kinds of things. So we do have some amazing guests and all of that. Are you ready to do the word thing?
Word thing?
I don't think I taught you about the word thing the last time that we did an episode together. The last couple times that we actually did curling episodes, we mostly were interviewing people.
Yes.
Which we are going to do. But since we have the actual format and we are together in studio, which I will point out that the last couple of them we kind of had to do remotely because there was a fake pandemic going on or whatever.
Some sort of worldwide pandemic thing.
Something or other. It's a good time to nix a whole third of curlers out of anyway. So yeah, the way the word thing works is a million years ago when Larry and I did the show, you maybe remember that. You were on the show very briefly way back then.
Occasionally.
We had this thing where we said, grab some buds, it's Miller time. And then the SAB InBev merger happened. So we took credit for that. And so since then, we have always done this thing where we pick a word without the other one knowing it and see if we can cause some international thing to occur.
Understood.
Okay. So you got to think of a word. Don't tell me what the word is. And I'm going to think of a word. And then we will say the words when I point to you, and then we'll see if it works. Does that make sense?
Oh, I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Okay, well, you just need to pick like any kind of a word.
Got it.
Okay. So sit back, grab some
Prosecco.
It's hockey puck time. You're listening to the best show, the only show, ChipChat on Beltway Radio and Beyond. All right, welcome back to ChipChat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond. I'm your host, Chip. All right, so curling is a sport that you and I play.
Occasionally, yeah.
Play is I don't know what we're saying for everybody else. We curl.
We do.
Which is where we slide rocks on ice. For some reason, this sport is gendered, which, to be perfectly honest, never made a lot of sense to me. I know there are men's and women's leagues. I played in men's league for a long time because that was what I was assigned to do, I guess. I've been in men's bonspiels. I had a lot of fun doing a lot of those things. To be perfectly honest, there was times when it was okay to be, with the guys and, not having to worry about watching what we say in front of, people that we care about or whatever. But anyway, that's weird. It seems weird to me. Part of the show that we've been doing, you and I off and on through this show, is where we've been tackling sort of governance in our sport. We interviewed Dean Gemmel, who is now the CEO of USA Curling. He wants to get back on the show. I've decided I will let him on.
Scheduling is a nightmare.
That is true. Very true. So we've been mostly focused, you and I, on sort of like governance of the sport. But what we're going to do now is tackle kind of an important part of governance of the sport, which is women in curling, which seems to be, let's say, underrepresented.
I think underrepresented is incredibly accurate.
So for purposes of this discussion, okay, it's important to note that when we mention women or we talk about women, we mean all of the kinds of women that there are. It's not like we're not dividing them up by groups, except by college basketball affiliations, in which case if your college blew it and fucked up my bracket,
Chip will judge you on that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Regardless of gender.
Yeah. It's not because she's a woman, it's because she's a Boilermaker.
That's true.
Go. Right.
Boiler up.
Anyway, so for what it's worth, in my experience curling, most of the people that I have curled with, regardless of gender, are better than me, and it doesn't seem like this makes a lot of a difference, including, for example, you, who I think at this point are a much better curler than I am, since I haven't actually been on the ice in several years.
I saw you on the ice last season.
Well, okay.
Very tiny people.
Yes, very tiny people. I don't get to curl anymore, and I'm
You're an excellent juniors coach.
Yes. But in any case, so speaking of better curlers than me, who are women, Stacy is here. So take it away, Stacy.
Okay, so speaking of women, I'm going to read this that my very awesome friend Olivia, shout out, wrote, because I want to make sure I get it right. For women, many folks of marginalized genders, the place they can feel safest are those that are traditionally considered women's spaces, and many of those spaces, including historically women's colleges, sports, other places, have kept pace, and including our transgender nonconforming community members. I know that our personal women's league at my club is about 10% of people who would identify with one of those labels publicly, and there's some more that probably would privately. And so tonight we're going to be talking about women's league, safe spaces, and women's curling, but please know that that means everything. And we're going to really focus on growing women in the sport. So nationwide, rough statistic, women are about 30% of the curlers in the country, and just by pure chance, they're going to be about 50% of the country.
Is that whoa, know, right? Whoa! Take it easy here. Women are 50% of the population.
Actually, they're a little bit more because we live longer.
Because you live a little longer.
Yeah, that's true.
Mostly because you don't do dumb shit like jump your dirt bikes off of elementary schools.
No, we have other children. We have children, which is even worse.
Yes. Also very dangerous in this country, but not so much in other countries.
That's a different show. All right. So we're kind of going to talk about why that is. Why are women, and I've done a million learn to curls, I've done open houses. They're not 30% women. They're about half and half.
Shocking.
I know. So we get them in the door. Why are they not staying? So we've actually assembled a pretty impressive team, if I do say so myself.
Don't say we, you.
Okay.
Assembled the guest. Normally, for the last 8.5 years or so, I have been providing the show with guests every week, which is a lot of people. But this week, I got somebody smarter than me to do it.
All right. So I would love to introduce our guests.
All right.
Or do you want them to introduce themselves?
Well, we can do it however you want.
All right. So we have Dina and Leah they're from Triangle Curling Club. You guys want to say hello?
There's a Triangle Curling Club?
Hello. Hi. How you doing?
Yes, and we curl with rocks that are round. It's really impressive.
It's very confusing.
Yeah, that is a little confusing. And full disclosure, of course, we know who Triangle is.
It's the pizza problems.
Yes, we like the
triangle pizza in a round thing in a square box.
We're just teasing them about this. But it's impressive that they are curling further south than us, and they have dedicated ice now.
They do.
Which, congratulations, way to go.
When we started
8
curling,
years strong. Yeah.
when we started curling, we were the most southern dedicated ice in the country.
That's true.
And we no longer hold that title, and we're okay with that.
Yep.
All right.
We didn't hold it either, so there you go.
That's right. So even North Cac is not the furthest south dedicated ice.
Nope.
There's more. All right. We have Lindsay from the Detroit Curling Club. Chip's going to be drinking out of a Detroit Curling Club glass today that I won at the women's spiel.
Go Blue. Unless you're the wrong kind of Michigan, in which case, then you need to get out of here. We don't
No, that's my alma mater. You're good.
All right.
Then you're welcome on this show anytime.
Yeah. None of those green folks, though, except for J. Scott Smith, friend of the show. Good guy.
We also have Leslie McGregor, who is the former president of the USWCA. Her term just ended.
Congratulations on completing your term.
Thank you. And at Curl at Chicago Curling Club.
There you go.
Yes.
There's only one in Chicago?
No, there are two.
Oh,
There are 3.
Three. Sorry.
How do we know which is which?
They're called-
Windy City, Chicago, and Exmoor.
Oh, my
Oh, I
goodness.
forgot about Exmoor. Sorry, Exmoor.
A lot of people forget about
I remembered the other two.
that. Okay.
All right. Okay, so these are our women who are all involved in successful curling efforts.
I would say president is pretty successful.
Absolutely. And later I'm going to share what we did at our club, and I stole it from Detroit or adapted it from Detroit. So
Being
I
from
thought
Detroit, also very successful.
only fair to have them represent. And then I heard about this Diva League. And I think we're going to start there because as soon as I heard about this, I was like, I have so many questions and have to hear more about this.
I love the idea of a Diva League because we had folks from the Washington Divas on our show, which is the women's football team
Yes.
here that plays here in DC. So
They should come curling.
yeah, actually we talked to Lois Cook about that. So she plays wide receiver
Let's hook
and
that up, man.
and quarterback and occasionally only as trick plays. But so we just want to make it clear that we are trying to do the thing and connect women's sports and make the broadcast. Shout out to the women's World Cup team.
Oh, cannot wait. First game's tomorrow.
Yeah, could they please schedule these things at reasonable times for the
Nope.
people in America? I know they're doing it in Australia, but nobody thinks Australia matters.
We have 2 games at 9 p.m.
Yeah, that's the best I can do.
Yeah, that's better than some of the other ones.
Yeah, so I'm good. Friday night I can stay up and we can kick the shit out of Vietnam, and that's all fine,
Got my
right?
Rapino jersey.
Laying 14 on Thailand is going to look like gentle compared to what I think is about to happen. However,
Back to this women's sport.
yeah,
All right, I'm going to start with Diva League because this caught my attention. As somebody who runs a women's program, is very interested in women's curling, somebody told me about this, and they described it as, we have a league where women play back end and men play front end, and there's no mansplaining allowed. And I said, I have to know more about
well, and hold the mansplaining bit because we have a whole segment dedicated to dealing with
it. We
mansplaining.
need a whole radio station.
Actually, Stacey, what you need to do is wait till the point where we get to the show about mansplaining, because that's when you'll find out about mansplaining.
So glad you've explained that.
Oh,
to me.
good.
All right. All right, so I'm going to turn to our Diva League members and let them kind of tell the story of. So Triangle was an arena club, which normally does not have men's and women's leagues because they're fighting for ice time against hockey players.
Correct.
Usually with fisticuffs, it gets really brutal.
There was a beer pong match once in the parking lot of Potomac.
It's true. So normally they don't have those kind of leagues. So when they went to dedicated ice, now you got all these opportunities. And somehow out of that, this came. So I'm going to turn it over to our Triangle ladies, and I would love to know, how did this league start? Whose idea was this?
Dina, you want to go first? Go ahead. You start. Well, first we want to say that we're not here representing our club. We're here as two gals that run a league in our club, and it's very much after our bedtime, so we don't have good filters on. So I wanted to say that up front and get the disclaimer out of the way. Go,
Duly noted.
We are all not representing our club.
Okay, I just wanted to say that up front. Go ahead.
Well, and I think the fun part is that there's 3 of us who run the Diva League. So if you asked us how it started, you get 3 different answers. I remember it as, and I think Leah helped me remember this too. So I am influenced by her. Stellar, but that like a board member approached and said, "Hey, let's run a women's league. Would you run it?" And we said yes. But there weren't enough women to necessarily have our own women's league because, we started with like maybe 60 people and then trying to fill up a club and all that kind of stuff. So, but we ran it. It was Thursday, early night.
I could take over because she's
go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, we had Thursday, and our it started like. We had like the 6:30 slot, so that was it. And the people that signed, it's a good slot Thursday night. So we had a group of, I think 24. 32. I don't think we had a bye team yet. That all joined, and it was just a good mix of people. We had just all kind of pulled together and built built the facility, and we did a lot of work ourselves, and there was a lot of sweat equity in there. So I think most of the people that were in the first couple of years of the league were kind of already had relationships and were comfortable with each other, that kind of thing. So that's how it formed. We didn't have enough women, and just there were a lot of women that joined those first couple of years. I don't know the ratio, but that's how it did. So Dina and I started running it, and then we recruited Dina's husband, Andrew, to help as well, because he's got like the math puzzle brain, and he can help us do teams and that kind of thing.
That's that thing, right? So it turns out that lots of people can do math.
Who knew?
It turns out even my grandmother was an astrophysicist.
All right.
Okay, so Andrew's the puzzle guy who figures out the draws. That's the worst job in any league.
Yes, so we're happy that he does it. We were glad we recruited him.
Yeah. I outsource that in my league.
No, we send that off to some nerds at MIT.
Oh, well, mine's an FBI agent. But,
sure, same idea.
All right, so the idea, and in some of the stuff we shared earlier, you were talking about kind of women gaining confidence to play these back end positions and what you were noticing and what kind of led to this. So I would love to hear that story of how you kind of noticed that women were not. Well, I'm just going to play it this way. After going to one learn to curl, men will jump in the skip position and be glad to tell me how to run strategy.
So let's explain for the non-curlers who might be listening the difference between front end and back end.
Got it.
So front end is the lead and the second. So these are the folks who throw the first set of stones usually. It doesn't have to be this way because you can skip from any position.
Let's just go with fair.
So normally the people who throw the first set of stones and the second set of stones and then mostly sweep.
They must be powerful sweepers, good at weight calling, all that stuff.
And mostly not involved in directing the strategy of the game.
Correct.
And then back end is?
They sweep a little and also throw 2 stones, but they are more focused on the strategy.
Right.
So you want your power sweepers in the front, and you want your brainiacs, for lack of a better term, kind of in the back. I personally love playing lead. I skip women's league because it's fun to exercise my brain once in a while, but go into any sort of...
I don't ever want to skip.
go into any sort of competition, I'm like, please just let me sweep my heart out and somebody else do the thinking.
Yeah, Vice is about the highest up in this thinking hierarchy I ever want to get, but I'm a happy second.
But the point remains that I've been doing at this for a while. We're drinking out of my various Bonspiel trophies tonight, and I will have somebody, mostly men, 10 seconds out of a Learn to Curl, explain to me what strategy I should be using. And I understand, Dina and Leah, you had some experience kind of similar.
Yeah, go ahead, Dina.
I know. Sorry. We'll see what happens with my internet. Maybe I can move if I need to. But thanks for taking over earlier, Leah. That's the beauty of having 2 people or 3 people do a league. You always got someone who can step in. But yeah, so Leah and I were wanting to get better when we finally got our dedicated ice. And so we did there was an instructional league that was set up, and I think we did the first one because we wanted to get better. And you'll see this theme. And what really struck me is the last time, like it was like, oh, you can do a free.
She's freezing again. So the last session, I'll take over because we tag team. The last session of, there she goes. So the last session of the instructional league, make your own teams and pick up. Go, Dina, go.
And so what was fascinating is that you had one side of the ice that was strategy, and almost, I think everybody but 2 people would be identified as male that were on that side, and the male instructors went on that side as well to teach strategy. And then on the other side, you had all the female instructors and all the female curlers because they wanted to get better. And I don't know if it was before this or after this, but another member, Sue Mitchell, at our club said, yeah, women want to like get better before they do the next thing.
Shout out to Sue Mitchell. She is famous in the curling world. Everyone knows her.
Well, and so she said that, and it like blew my mind. I was like, that's exactly it. Like, I want to get better at this delivery before I skip. But at that point, I also was kind of still under the under 5, and our club had never sent to the women's under 5 at the GNCC at the time. And so kind of it all sort of bubbled together, and we wanted to make sure that women felt comfortable doing back end. And so that kind of kept going, I think, in our league. And that instant really solidified it for me personally, of like, oh, okay, like you just have to try it and maybe not be so perfect, and it's okay, but you have to have a place where you feel okay, maybe failing and losing every game. And I think, I'm not sure if I won a game of skip yet, and I've been doing it for 6 or 7 years, maybe once. But like I still try it, and I still keep coming back.
Is there some sort of formatting rule within the league about who plays what position to like encourage this, or is it just sort of like tradition?
No, I'll take over this. So so when we built the building, we had to grow our membership. So there was a conscious effort for the people. Like I said, like when we started, it was under 100. So it was a conscious effort that we had to grow it. To grow it, you have to grow more leagues. When you have more leagues, you need more experienced people that can play that know all the positions. So when you grow more leagues, you can grow the knowledge, and it keeps growing. So we knew that we had to bring some people that weren't used to playing back end up to speed them on back end. How it grew in the Diva League, again, I want to say it was organic. We reached out to people, some mostly women, some men, that were always stuck in the 1 and 2 positions, especially when we were only curling in arena, and they had wanted to move up. So what we did was we approached some of the senior members in the league and asked them if they wanted to be a mentor. And then we kind of informally teamed the mentor with the person, and it kind of evolved. Like, we didn't make rules, but the mentor suggested, well, how about the first season they advice and I skip. In the winter, we flipped that around, and that's kind of how it grew. Again, the way the Triangle Curling allowed us, they gave us a league, and as long as it's within the rules, that's how we run it. So, anything you want to add to that, Dini?
Yeah, I think we would just we had one time where we had someone say that they weren't going to play with a women's skip, and so we realized, like, oh, well, we want to make sure that this is okay, that if women skip do play, like people will do this. And so I think it just became a little bit more solidified that we luckily have lots of people who will play with women's skips, but there's some people out there who may not. And so that was definitely an influence.
I want to say something about this.
Please.
Yes, this is a personal challenge because I think a lot of if men tuned into the show at all, which I hope you did, I appreciate you if you did, you're thinking, oh, I would have no problem playing for a women's skip. But my challenge is, do you?
Yes.
Have you?
Yes.
Look around your league. How many women's skips are there? How comfortable is the club as a whole with women's skips? And this answer is going to be obviously different for everybody, but just as like a mental exercise, it's easy to say, like, I would be totally fine with that. But do you? You will play with
going back through all
hilarious.
of my teams that I can think of, I don't think I've ever really questioned anybody who, like, if they go, all right, you're on this team, I go, all right, well, that's whose team I'm on.
You're a unicorn, and you'll let me skip for your team.
I really couldn't care less. I have no expectation of winning anytime, anything. I mean, I am not a good curler. Let's just be clear about this. If I'm ever on a team, it's because I'm either fun or good in the kitchen, or like, there. That's about my qualifications.
But I do want to kind of put that out there because that is
this
a
is
thing.
a thing.
This is a thing. Is
I'm not going to curl for a woman's skip.
Every one of us can name a curling couple where the woman is the better curler, but the man always skips. And I'm about to see a lot of head nods, I think.
That's an insane idea.
So let me get Lindsay and Leslie in on this. Like, thoughts, really.
I feel like, I mean, this has definitely happened to me where I've been told, please just keep your mouth shut because nothing you have to say will be of value. But I really think, especially in the club I'm in now, that women are very well accepted. And I was just thinking about our open league, and I would say that 30% of the skips in open are women, with men playing front end.
And what do you think maybe helped your open leagues get to that point?
Because
I know our open leagues are not going to reflect that. Women skips mostly have women teams. They're kind of relegated to, if you want to be a woman skip, it's because you want to go to a bonspiel, so get your women's team.
Mm-hmm.
There are very few women skips with male front ends. That sounds dirty if you take it out of context.
No, that's usually what this show is, but that's not.
So yeah, that's my question. Is
why is curling gendered?
It's the same rocks, same brooms, same shoes. I wear men's gloves because they were on sale, and I asked the guy in Wisconsin what's the difference between these and women's gloves, and he couldn't tell me, so I bought them. And actually flexibility is huge in this sport, and if you want to play gender roles, women are usually more flexible.
I can't really fathom this, but please answer the question before my brain explodes. Go ahead.
All right. Lindsay, you want to say anything about kind of what women?
I was going to say Detroit, and I can only speak to my experience there, is that we've had a really strong women's presence for a very long time. I mean, our first women's curling night started in the 1940s. So, I mean, it's ebbed and flowed, and it's taken a lot of gains and losses over the years. But in recent years, in like the past 10 years, I feel that women have been moving out of our women's league and taking on leadership roles as skips in our open leagues as well, in mixed teams. Not always are they skips, but definitely playing back end. And I think that depends on the level of the league. We have many different mixed levels leagues. We have very competitive leagues. We have less competitive leagues. So depending on what that is, you might see maybe more women in different back end roles or not, but we have a lot of mixed teams. And I think that's because we've just pushed for a long time for that integration and in working on creating a strong women's support group. I don't want to say support group, but support through our women's group called the Rockettes. And we do a lot
for a club.
And we're going to point out that Chip is drinking out of the Detroit Curling Club wine glass that
Nice.
I am a humongous fan of the women's spiel at Detroit. Highly, highly recommend. I have been.
It's a lot.
The belt on there.
I have won every single event except the B. So that's my new goal, is to win the B. All right.
So here's what I think we should do. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what Detroit's doing in a little more depth, right? Because we're always interested in things about Detroit on this show.
Well, you are.
Hey, we have
Soft spot for Michigan.
it's a thing. It's more than a thing. All right, and then also we want to talk about mansplaining. So if all of the ladies watching, listening are paying attention, this is the time for you to go get a little break and get your mind squared up and right so that you can come back and understand, because then we're going to tell you how things actually happen in women's curling.
So all ladies, get a glass of rosé.
Does
We'll
that
see
sound
you back
right?
in a second.
All right, we're going to take a break. You're listening to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Okay, it's true. I stayed up late last night, so I had half the Turbo Force this morning. The vitamins, the minerals, the amino acids. The vitamins, the minerals, the the vitamins, the minerals, the amino acids. The vitamins, the minerals. That's Turbo Force. 5 different types of caffeine. Doesn't have the crash. 5 different types of caffeine. That's Turbo Force. 5 different types of caffeine. Doesn't have the crash. 5 different types of caffeine. That's Turbo Force. Plant derived. 500 milligrams. Slow burn. The very best. I want a long burn. Plant derived. 500 milligrams. Slow burn. The very best. That's Turbo Force. I tell you what, I'm feeling a lot of energy. My brain's sure working good right now. Good right now. Good right now. Pre-workout next level Turbo Force. Turbo Force. Pre-workout next level Turbo. It's Turbo Force. And get the fish oil.
Now, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me tonight is Stacy. Say hi.
Hi.
Okay, that was, of course, Tez's favorite musical act, Alex Jones.
In honor.
Yeah, and
of this chair
and
next to
before
him.
that, yeah, you're in the Tez chair, and before that is a new song that we got this week from one of the premier, and this is all a real thing, MAGA rappers that they apparently make enough money at to quit their job at Dairy Queen.
Well, at least they have their hats picked out in advance.
That's very impressive.
Do
Yes.
they wear them like flat billed, or do they round?
I
them?
think they do a combination, you know?
This needs to be a future show.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting. Anyway, back to our discussion here.
So, I mentioned before the break, I'm drinking a little rosé prosecco because we're discussing women's league, and I was gonna.
Not that we're stereotyping what women drink at women's league.
We're not. I am merely sharing my experience at women's league, and at my women's league, we are definitely known for our snacks and charcuterie boards. But I was told no food in the booth, so I brought you a to-go charcuterie board.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So you can take that on the
I'll
way
take
home.
that home. Yep.
Or share it with your lovely family. who I
Well,
adore.
we'll find out whether I do or not.
He won't.
Tune in next week.
All right, so I'm gonna share a little bit about what we did at the curling club, where I am the women's league coordinator, and how that was inspired by.
You left that out earlier. You should
know,
talk.
so I was gonna
You're
talk
kind of
about
like
it
an
now.
important, famous person.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So during that worldwide pandemic, you may
Yes.
have lived through it.
I
as
did.
we all
I caught the pandemic.
Yeah. So did
Did you
I.
get it too?
I did. Yeah. My
Yeah.
whole family. A lot of things went online, and there was a lot of Zoom things and Teams things. One of those Zoom things was some women from the Detroit Curling Club said, "Here's how we got women in our women's league," and I'm going to sum it up, and if I am wrong, please correct me. They had a team that was on a bye week and an empty sheet, and they said that bye week team is teaching women's learn to curls on that empty sheet every week.
Because you got the available sheet.
You got the available sheet, you got available instructors, and the very next half, their women's league was full.
That's dynamite.
That's genius, right?
Yeah, and seems very obvious.
Freaking genius.
You know,
So,
we curl next to literally NASA, but Detroit figured that out.
I know, it's pretty much
Just
it's your Michigan.
I'm saying, so it's Michigan engineers, clever
Occasionally.
folks.
All right, so our women's league at Potomac was, let's just say, we were not using all for clubs.
Considered kind of a joke, to be honest. I mean, it was like,
We used
what do
to
they
be,
need all these sheets for?
We used to be very, very full.
Yeah.
Through a series of events that I'm not going to explain because that would take the whole show, we ended up having to alternate between an early draw and a late draw instead of keeping our lovely early draw time. So now with the late draw and having to double late draw with competitive leagues, anyway, a lot of women left. So it was, how do we get women?
How do we fill 2 draws on a 4-sheet club?
Right. Yes.
Doesn't seem that hard.
It's 32 people. So we had 5 teams in the fall of 2021. And I said, all right, we need to get, so there was a team on bye week. So I was like, we need to get 6 teams in the spring. So at least we're playing every week.
That makes sense.
Bye week is ridiculous when you only have 5 teams.
Right.
So we have this early draw and this late draw. Everyone hates late draw because
we all hate late.
It's late here.
It's a schlep.
It's 9:30 p.m. And I said, all right, let's dive into this like Detroit idea and say, let's come up with some non-prostitute sounding like late night ladies. I couldn't ever find a way to not make that sound dirty.
That's because the patriarchy has basically labeled anything women do after dark as dirty.
Yes, it's true.
It's a great trick. I'm really proud of that one. I didn't write that, but I'll take credit for it.
I'm not sure that's the one you want to hang your
No?
hat on.
All right. Well,
anyway, again, worldwide pandemic, people were not super comfortable with having strangers come in yet. And I was like, well, all right, let's have league games in the early draw, which is every other week. And then on those other weeks, let's use that for like clinics or training or something.
Practice ice
Even just practice ice. So pitch this to the women. We are very much like hold hands, sing Kumbaya, vote as a community together. And we did it. And from the fall of having the 2 games a night, we went in the spring to being full with the wait list.
So it seems like it worked.
It worked.
Following the Detroit model.
Inspired by. So we didn't do learn to curls because of the pandemic, but inspired by that idea of do something else.
Much in the way
may need something different.
Much in the way that Motown influenced music for several generations, Detroit curling has influenced Potomac for at least one generation.
Carry the one. Yes, that adds up.
I'm working it out.
So that filled our league. The next year, the 2022-23 season, this past year, that filled our league again.
Great success.
We had mostly women instructors that are late draw league. And the other thing is everyone hates late draw because you get home at like 1 a.m. So we said, fine, it's going to be an hour. I mean,
right,
9:30 to 10:30.
But now there's a reason you're going. You're not just going to like finish this game. You're going to like improve your skills and get better.
And some people are like, well, if I could leave at 10:30, then I'm home a lot earlier, and that doesn't seem so crazy. We have some incredibly good women curlers that taught clinics. We brought in, Hunter Clausen and Andy Dunham, who went to Olympic trials to teach some sweeping. My sweeping got amazing, by the way. Dominique Banville, is there anything she has not won in curling?
I don't know. And several other sports, by the way. She's good at everything.
She's really good at just sports in general, but she taught a lot of clinics. People like that. So that's
also great musical taste, gotta say.
So that was what we did.
Sounds like it worked.
It did.
We should do that a lot.
And part of it is exactly what Gina and Leah were saying with you kind of need a space to feel confident. Women, especially women, need that space. Like, we're not going to take on these leadership roles until we feel confident. And so that safe space to build that confidence.
To be clear, eventually that shouldn't need to be the thing. And you did say safe space, drink. But since it is currently the thing, we need to do the best we can to accommodate this.
So our numbers went up every single half. So in the spring, the previous year, I think we had like 3 or 4 people on the wait list, and I think we had like 12 people on the wait list. The other thing we did is you register for back end or front end.
Oh, so people know what they're going into. So do you have a draft for a women's league or
I
no?
think we're gonna start it in the fall. We finally have enough people. We didn't. We had coordinator made leagues because there was 12 people. So
But now you have so many people,
now we have people to pick
and
from.
there's so much interest.
So it will be a draft in that you got in the league. It's just a draft of whose team you're on. It's not a draft of I'm picking good players.
No,
it's
no.
just whose team you're gonna play. But you do register for back end, which is your mentoring role, and you register as a mentor or a mentee basically. And we found that worked really well. And since I stole it from Detroit, and Detroit runs a little bit more of what I would call a traditional women's league, but it works and it's full. And I would love to hear kind of how that traditional women's league looks at Detroit.
Well, and I just got a question to clarify. So when you said mentor, you mean people get to the back end is mentoring the front end, or is it like Skip is mentoring Vice? Like what does that mean?
It's generally back end mentoring. Well, okay, so we've had coordinator made leagues, which means I made the leagues with I've had help along the way. But the unwritten rule was kind of if you are an experienced Skip, you get a brand new Vice. So Dominique, who we mentioned earlier, has won everything, actually viced in the spring.
Sure.
For a newer Skip, and it was great. And again, it's all women, but it did kind of make it so that the whole league is not beginners, or the whole league is not really experienced folks.
I mean, this sort of works off of a similar model of like Pizza League that we have, where you've got experienced curlers playing back end and less experienced curlers playing front end and getting, the sort of payoff there. So it's some combination of the two, I think is fair to say.
Yeah, that was a change that we made mid-year. We have a league lottery because we're way oversubscribed.
Because you have so many people. This thing is popular.
But because of how you rank your things in the lottery, it was possible that you could get an entire league full of beginners. And that's, kind of blind leading blind. It's not advisable when you're signing up to be mentored and there's nobody there. So this was kind of how we shifted it. And it's kind of a traditional men's league half the time. And then half the time it's like this very supportive practice time. But that traditional league part, I think, is still important. So I'm going to let Lindsay talk about kind of how it looks at Detroit, because they do run a more what we would call a traditional women's league, but it's working.
It's working.
I guess we could call it a traditional one. I like to think of it just as a flexible league. There's a lot of support in our league, and every person that's part of it is at wide variety of levels. And I think I like to think of it as flexible because when we have 3 sessions throughout the year, that first session is prior to Learn to Curl. So that's going to be all our returning members. So, some people sign up with a team already in mind, and some people don't. And then we do a draw. And we just really sign up for, if you're not going to be on a team, like what your position is going to be or what you rank your positions. And then they draw and put teams together that way. And then traditionally we have, a competition of some sort during that time. Sometimes in the past we would do All-American at that time of year. We actually last year finally moved it to a weekend bonspiel, so we could include every woman in the club, which was great because it wasn't just the women's night; it was every woman, and it was so fun. I was so happy. But during that time, what we have done historically, and it changes from year to year. Maybe if we're playing for the chick pin, the teams that sign up together are going to not.
Chick pin, explain.
You don't have to play for a chick pin anymore because the All-American has first and second.
All right. Explain chick pin.
Hold on. Back up even further. Explain all the non-curlers listening.
The chick pin was developed by a committee that no longer exists anymore called the Women's Curling Development Fund as a fundraiser to sponsor women and youth in curling, and it's now called Gifts and Grants. And we still have some chick pins that often clubs would use as gifts for leagues.
I've never wanted something so bad in my life.
I want a chick pin.
I want a chick
They're
pin
really
so
cute,
bad. I
actually.
don't even know what it is until 10 seconds ago, and I have to have
Yeah,
one.
now we gotta have a chick pin.
There's two different varieties. There's the original. There's only a few left, limited now, and then the second chick pin. And
Can
they're
we get a ChipChat chick pin? That sounds
I
so
totally
good.
want a ChipChat chick pin.
We got to do that. The
All right, I'm writing
ChipChat
that
chick
down.
pin. We're gonna make one.
I had another question about kind of when you structure leagues with a mentor, does it affect the pace of play? Because that's something we've struggled with.
I can answer for our league personally, yes. So we have a custom, I'm going to call it, although I'm not going to use the word rule because I don't like writing down rules. But we usually only play 6 ends, and we will play 6 ends even if you are getting completely destroyed. We will just stop hanging the score. But in women's league, we play 6 ends. A couple times we get more than that. We have men's league right after us, so we are time bound. But yes, it is a slower pace of play. We've done in our clinic times, we've done a lot of practice games. I know I've had some women's Bonspiel teams and we've gone and practiced against people. And those have been the slowest games of my life because we stop and talk about everything.
Every shot.
But that's the time to do it.
Right. Of course it is.
Because nobody's waiting for us at that point.
Right.
And we've had people that have tried skipping in that kind of practice time that have said, like, this is going to be the slowest game of our life.
Right, because they're going to take a lot of time to figure it out.
Every single
How
shot,
else
they're
are
going to
they
be like, I
supposed to
don't know
learn?
what to do. But we have kind of dedicated time for that. But in our league games, it would be accurate to say we only play about 6 ends because it is a little bit slower. Because we are stopping to say, like, hey, make sure you're standing here. And our first clinic of the year was rules and customs and what do we call it? Rules written and unwritten, taught by the lovely FL, shout out, who is a certified official.
Who was one of the first skips I ever played for.
She's amazing, and she is a real curling official, so who better to teach it?
And can throw parking lot weight.
She really can. And it was perfect because that happened, the second week of the season, and so all of our newbies, it was kind of implied that you need to show up for this.
Yeah.
And the rest of the season, we didn't have to tell them where to stand. We didn't have to tell them, don't touch that, or all those kind of like things that you get yelled at for your first year. They just knew outright, because rather than learn as you go, we're going to teach this to you on purpose.
Which seems the right way to do it. We all like had to absorb all of these things, like just by being around. If somebody had just given me a list, I'd be like, all right, cool. Gotta follow the list.
I got yelled at so much
my
first year.
Like, apparently, you're not supposed to sing while you're standing around.
Oh, I still haven't learned that.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
I do.
It's nice when they have the little things in the ice, because then you can know where to stand.
Courtesy line.
Courtesy line,
Yeah, that
standing.
thing.
Yeah, so she went over courtesy line. She even taught like how to measure in case you're doing vice, because I've learned a lot of women will not play a vice position because they are terrified if they have to measure and they have no idea how to do it.
Is that because women don't know how to do numbers and measure things?
Please read the Washington Post article.
It's the dumbest thing in the entire world. We're going to post it later. It's one of my favorite pieces of...
You really need to get curling knowledge from anywhere else but that article.
It's one of the best articles ever written by somebody who has no idea what they're talking about. It's really great.
It was on the front page of the Post.
Yeah, it was really funny.
Yeah.
It wasn't a Dave Barry story, too. It looked like it reads like a Dave Barry column. It's not.
It wasn't. And it was written by a woman.
Yes.
Ah!
Very, very bad. All right, anyway.
Anyway, so yes, to answer your question, Leslie, the pace is slower. If anybody else wants to comment.
Yeah, what's it like in Detroit?
Well, on our league, it depends. Like in the beginning of the season, since everyone's been there at least one season, it's pretty normal. We have an hour. I think it's an hour and 15 minutes, or it might be exactly 90 minutes. No,
That sounds about right.
maybe 2 hours. 2 hours and 15 minutes. Yeah, 2 hours and 15 minutes to play. So a lot of the things we do in our club are actually like fun things. And one of our draw masters, to incentivize speed of play, once you get the hang of everything, instituted if you get 8 ends in that allotted time, instead of breaking down and talking about everything for a lengthy time, is you get a raffle. That team gets a
Oh.
raffle ticket.
Wait, what? There's prizes?
Yeah. Well, hold on.
So it's an incentivizer for making sure that you are keeping up the speed of play, that you're getting your 8 ends in. And when you get two, more experienced teams together, they're going to go quick. They want to do that. We have some teams that are going to nationals, women's nationals. So they want to get practice playing with that time restraint so that they know how to do that when they get to those Bonspiels. And that's been helpful, and I like it too to keep me honest,
So wait a minute. You reward people for maintaining pace of play rather than punish them for getting it wrong.
Correct.
That's a pretty brilliant idea.
Oh my god, I want prizes.
I can't take credit for it as our John Master Judy.
If you've not played at Pittsburgh and seen their clock, they have like a clock and
It's
it
a
tells
big
you
clock.
where, well, it's like a TV, but it
Yeah.
tells you where you should be in the end, like who should be throwing. It blew my mind when we were there for GNCC, like amazeballs.
But I will say, like, depending later on the season, once we get our new curlers in, our teams are going to sort of shift around a little bit. And so, in that second session, you might get a little slower. But once we get to the third session, which is our championship session, things are going to speed up again. And traditionally during that third session, we sort of, I don't want to say split into two groups, but those that want to compete for the championship are going to compete against each other. And if there's teams that are like, I just really want to focus on skills, I just want to have fun, we have them play each other. And then what we used to do, we didn't this last year because we just had so many teams, but during that time we would do skill clinics based on what the group that was more interested on doing, fun or skill building.
You did what now?
Wait,
Wait,
so
hold on,
actually-
rewind. You did what now when people wanted to do things to learn to get better? You did what?
We did skill clinics. So we had, because we have,
Hold on. What's a skill clinic for everybody who's not like a curler?
All right.
so it would be,
Go ahead, please explain.
it'd be working on skills that you need for curling. So brushing techniques, the getting down your weight.
Erica, I'm sorry. We have to pause that. She's speaking Canadian briefly. Okay, so sweeping techniques. What else might you learn in the skills clinic?
Delivery, balance. Some members deliver with a stabilizer, which is not your broom, and some people then want to move to broom delivery. So that might be something. I remember years ago when I was going through it with newer, we did getting your weight down. And, I always had a hard time throwing lighter. I love takeouts. But then the opposite for other people where they couldn't throw takeouts. So we just spent, getting your weight down and then being able to get it into the correct spot and you're at the target, So
Hitting the broom.
So you like this? Our hit weight clinic was called "I'd Hit That."
Yeah. It should have been called the whack, but okay.
All right.
That's fine.
We called it "I'd Hit That," and we set up and we just threw hit weight for an hour because women are like, I don't know what to do, and so many fell over, and by the end they weren't falling over anymore.
The whack. Just throw I can't throw the fluffy bunnies. That's where I cannot.
We also had a how to judge your weight clinic, but yeah.
I can call weight. I just can't.
So one thing I'm noticing on everybody here talking is they have kind of these, oh shoot, I have to drink again if I say it, safe space clinics, drink. These clinics or times when women can feel okay to not do it perfectly.
Yeah.
It's okay to fail right now because you're going to get it in a minute or we're going to help you. And I'm going to let Leslie kind of talk as somebody who's been involved in national curling for a while about what she's noticed either at your club, at other clubs. You've certainly been around more than I have about successful programs all seem to have this kind of you can practice skills and fail and it's going to be fine. and it's not in the middle of a game. It doesn't count for a championship.
But you shouldn't practice in a game because,
right, exactly.
As we all know, you're just gonna think about it. But
right, having that dedicated space. How much do you see that, or encourage it, or just talk about it in general?
Well, I think one of the things that is really undervalued is practice and spending time working on it and having someone who can sort of critically look at what you're doing. Not everyone wants that, but people who do want to get better and are willing to work on it need the time to be able to do that and access. And I think one of the things we're trying to do is develop youth curling through the USWCA, but to bring a program that's very simple and straightforward. And it's not just curling skills. It goes into, you have to volunteer at your club, be part of the community, go to a bonspiel, and skills as well, but how to be a teammate, how to work on strategy and become a better player and person. And I think encouraging everyone to remember nobody tries to miss a shot. And if you watch the Briar, they miss shots. So remember, they're the best there is and they miss. So don't be so hard on yourself.
USA has good curlers too.
Yeah,
we just don't get to see it as much.
It's not on TV. But
yeah,
even the best curlers miss.
Watch the Olympics, man.
They'll flash.
They flash their hits a lot.
It'll happen.
I've seen a hog rock in the Scotties.
Yeah, right. I've seen several weird things happen where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I also have done that.
I always respond, if you needed somebody to hog a rock, I'm right here. You could have called me.
You could have called. So one of the things that I'm sort of detecting, kind of like what you said, there's a difference between having like practice ice versus these clinics, right? Because we're not talking about somebody independently throwing rocks and evaluating their own misses or stuff. It's direct training, like for a group, but in a semi-competitive or in a game-based,
zero competitive way.
But in a game-based way?
No.
Really? Just in straight-up training?
We called it guided practice.
That makes more sense.
So it's like practice with a coach, but
right.
Obviously, we don't have coaches.
We don't practice with coaches?
I mean,
every other sport practice with coaches.
Right.
I don't know, curling, maybe we ought to catch up.
I know, right? Like
practicing with the coach is valuable.
Yeah, so it's not like a coach in that, they have the jacket that says coach and they're paying them. But it's a more senior member, somebody who's someone who knows what they're talking about, and all but one of our clinics this year and all but one of our clinics last year were taught by women, but we have like these Olympian quality men and they offered to teach something, so I wasn't going to say no.
So sure, why not? I mean, if everybody wants to learn.
I've been at the sport a long time. I went to their sweeping clinic and I was sore in all new places, which means I've been doing it all wrong for all these years. But we've had some of these kind of senior, we had one that was just communication on the ice. Things you need to talk about with your team before you start playing. What is bumper weight? Because apparently that's different for everybody. What do the hand signals mean? Because those can change. And
those weird Schenectady people with their backwards handles and all that stuff. Yeah.
I'm not even going to address that because that drives me crazy and I don't even know what to think when I play against them. But she made a point to say, like, let's explicitly talk about this. Let's not pick it up as we go.
Has it yielded better results?
I would say yes.
Let's ask the president of all of the curling.
Oh, no, I want the whole panel.
But let's start with President Leslie.
Past president.
Past president.
Outgoing President Leslie. I don't know.
Gallantly served her term.
Yeah, we'll riot and make you president again. Don't worry. We do that here in DC.
Well, just to be clear, the United States Women's Curling Association is focused on grassroots developmental curling, not competitive. So if I'm talking about competitive, I'm talking about my own personal experience as a curler.
We understand.
Very good. She's very good.
Has these types of let's call them developmental
we can call them clinics.
Activities. Well, no, I want to include more things.
Sure.
Have those things yielded positive results improving the quality of the curling at your respective clubs?
Yes.
Everybody.
I think if you can get a good percentage of people to go, they get better. Other people want to get better. They pass on some of the things they've learned, but the quality of the leagues gets better.
Other women care to weigh in because you've all had some sort of clinic training scenario happening.
I would say too, one of the things that over the last couple of years that we've done just as a whole club, men and women, is we've started doing more in-house hosting level 1, level 2 instructor training. And so, you know, a lot of our women have gone to that, are now level 1 or 2 instructors. And what's really awesome is then maybe we're not hosting as many clinics during Women's League, but, you know, we'll host clinics throughout the year for the entire club, and women are coming to those and they're being represented as the instructors, or they are giving advice to people about the different skills they need and giving them feedback. And it's really great to see that grow.
So I guess that was our idea of like guided practice. Wasn't sorry, her Midwestern accent.
No,
is gonna
I
bring
heard
out
it.
mine
I heard it.
Hardcore.
sorry.
Mine's gonna come out hardcore.
That's all right.
And
She's had several Prosecco's. It's
we're
all right. Go
drowning
ahead.
this bottle of wine. It's gonna be real bad. Real bad.
Real bad. Don't you
You
know?
betcha.
I'm a native Chicagoan at heart.
It's okay.
So
I'll hold it down for the regular people. This is what we sound like in real life. But all right, go ahead.
all right. So now I lost my train of thought. But that idea, nope, lost it.
Okay.
Guided
Here's my
practice.
question.
I wanted to chime in about
Yeah, I wanted to ask the
yeah,
the
and
folks
Tina, Tina
at
might have another
Triangle.
take. I'm just saying there's a lot of there's space for women to improve, but there's also like women that just want to come and curl in the league. Like they want to get better, they want to feel comfortable, but time constraints, right? Like we got kids at home, we got jobs, we got all this, so we, you know, and usually the spots for the clinics that happen in our schedule, it's like a Saturday, or it's not really a good conducive time. So those opportunities are there, but it's not like it's I don't think it's realistic for a lot of, I think many members, but I would say a lot of the women members there. So not that I don't want to do that or I don't want to encourage that, but I think in the league itself, you have to have kind of create. We try to create. I'm not going to speak for anybody else. We try to create an atmosphere that is a little lighter. It is competitive and all that, but it's lighter. It's more fun. We giggle. We sing. We do stupid nights of we have like crazy draw snack competition. So we have all that just sets a comfortable tone. And then those people that like, I just tend to get kind of maybe cliquey or anything like that. The people that go to the clinics are kind of like the people that it seems like don't have young kids, don't have all the, and they just have more free time, or they're the, like whatever. I don't want to generalize and sound like I'm.
Leah, what we did at our club is we took half of our league and turned it into clinics. So it's part of the league. So
yeah, and I think
one game 1 week, and then the next week is a clinic, and then the next week is a game, and the next week is a clinic.
And I'm curious
so
about.
I totally agree that that time is difficult, but making that time, at least where we are, was a priority.
And I'm curious about the difference between big clubs and small clubs, right? Because Detroit's got a big club, right? Triangle's pretty small club, Potomac's somewhere in the middle, right? And using that time effectively, because we are trying to grow, right?
There's only so much ice time.
There's only so much ice time. So it's like, what is the value that you assess to it? Is it more valuable to play a few extra games, or is it more valuable to get a bunch of people who are better curlers and feel better about this? It's something, rising tide raises all boats, something.
Yeah,
so like, I want to ask the Triangle folks that question.
Well, what I wanted to say too, just like listening to all of this, that piece about a small club, or also, we're pretty new on dedicated ice. We've only been around for 8 years, 25 plus as a whole club. So it's been really impressive to like see it still in the South. But and I think it's just interesting to see like what people want and what people need. And we try really hard to listen to the people who get in the league, and we take surveys and kind of check in every year or so just to kind of see like, is this the pace that people want to do? And one of the things is that we actually don't do different clinics within the league. We kind of learn through the league, which I get, like, if you're really want to be serious, then that's not maybe the best way to learn. But as Leo was saying, there's time constraints. Like I used to, before my 5-year-old, I was in 2 or 3 leagues a week. Sometimes I think 4, but I just can't do that now. And so I don't get a whole lot better, but I still feel like I can like go on a Thursday night on the Diva League and like play whatever position that I kind of feel into for that season. Because we also like take surveys and we make the teams, but we really request like what you want to do, what you want to play. And we do encourage people to like get out of their comfort zone if they feel like, back into scary. And so I think it's just been interesting to see or to hear tonight how other clubs are doing it. I do think it's a difference between size and like how long you've been around. Maybe, and that's kind of the cool thing of this last season, we had one member who was like, I think we have enough women now in this league. Like it'd be cool if it was all back end. And we were able to make it happen, which, will we do every time? Probably not, because that's not what everybody member in the league wants. But it's been kind of interesting to see, as Leah was mentioning, it has been organic with some of these like pieces of what we've seen in the past, kind of gearing us towards trying to make sure it feels safe, and like a place where you can be good, be not so good, that kind of thing. But we definitely learn more like as we're playing. So that's
and what's the big club perspective on this from Detroit about using league time for clinics?
Well, and that's why I was saying that when we did clinics, that was like when I started years ago, like six or 7 years ago. Then the last couple of years, we've grown a ton, and we have so many. Our women's league is completely full with 2 teams on a bye every week. So we don't have that time anymore to use that dedicated ice, for 4 clinics. So that's why we're doing it outside of our league. But I agree with Dina and Leah, like learning from the league itself is so crucial. And you can see that people will come in, as a new curler into the women's league as a lead, which is first player, and then in a couple of years they're gonna move up and they want to try the back end, they want to try vicing and skipping, and you see them do that more readily and more actively in the women's league than you might see in some of the other leagues.
Is there more room
in other leagues, but it goes a little quicker.
Does it seem like there's a little more room to grow within women's league because it is that kind of a safe space drink, but or is it something about like the individual people there, or is it just because the league itself seems a bit more welcoming of those who are trying to fail? It's okay to fail.
I think it's pretty like inviting. I actually asked our board before I came on here, what is something that you'd like me to share? And they're like, just how inviting it is. No, we're competitive. We want to win. But at the same time, we're cracking jokes to each other. And if, when I first had to skip in something, I like to play Vice, but, every once in a while I have to take over and skip. While I'm learning how to skip, the person competing against me is like, hey, you need to move here on the ice to look to see where the rock's coming, because you're standing over here, you're not really learning that line, and that was something I never knew. But on other leagues, when I've had to do that might be co-ed, and it's not with everyone, but it tends to be a little bit more quiet, closed off, where on our women's league, everyone's talking, everyone's very friendly, giving advice. You still want to win, but it might be like, hey, after we're done playing, hey, I noticed on your delivery you were doing this. Have you tried that? Maybe next time, if you can make it here 10 minutes earlier, go out on the ice and try doing this. I'll come out and watch you. So it's really a community based, I would say.
My first women's league skipping, the other skip helped me more than I could possibly ever say thank you for, because I had no freaking clue what I was doing. So if you would like to mansplain that to me about what I should be doing.
So speaking of mansplaining, I mean, nominally, this is my radio show. And since, we are going to let women on the radio, which is a new thing.
Occasionally.
Well, we let Betty White on, and then we took a break for about 50 years.
You let Haley on.
There's a few here and there. Yeah, Haley's been on the show.
I feel like some few musicians have been on here.
Look, you have to have a reason, okay? That's how that works. Mansplaining is a real problem. And what you probably don't understand is that the reason that men are doing that is because they know so much more no.
Please explain that to me in detail.
It seems to me like this has got to be, and we're setting this up in the format of the joke here of the mansplain, but
understood.
It seems to me that this has got to happen to basically every level of curler, no matter how good you are, if you're a woman.
Literally all the time.
And it never happens to us. I can count several times where a woman who is a better curler than I have told me, hey, maybe do this or do that or whatever. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. That's great. And like, I'm grateful for that.
Actually, I have a test. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in the warm room, ask one specific person a strategy question and see how many other people answer.
Oh, that is a good way to test
If
this.
more than the person you actually asked answer, you have a mansplaining problem.
Aha! So I want to know.
I do it all the time, by the way, just as a social experiment. Every single time, 5 men come and answer the question. Like, what should I have done in this situation?
Don't worry. What you should have done is called me. No. So like I am curious though, as the lone dude representative here on this panel. I want to know, like, how do you handle somebody who's clearly unqualified mansplaining at you when you might have years more experience and are maybe a league coordinator or maybe running these clinics or maybe the president of some organization or any of those kind of things? How do you handle that? Bruh.
Mine was better on Twitter when I just said, oh, all of my trophies disagree with you. But I would love to hear from
Yeah, I want to hear from the panel on this one.
We usually just go out and kick their butt on the ice.
Yeah, that works to a point.
What happens when you beat them and they still go, well, I wouldn't have done it that way?
It doesn't usually happen.
Freaking time.
We were actually at a Bonspiel in Wisconsin, and I overheard the team we were playing. I had an all-women's team against an all-men's team say, well, this should be over in 4 ends. I'm sure they won't be able to keep up.
Who hasn't heard that in a lot of
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
So we won in 6, I think. And
all right, they were off by 2. Come on.
They were thinking it would go the other way.
Well, yeah, obviously. But yeah.
But
you whooped the shit out of them.
The next day, he said, you know what? I think I underestimated you guys. But yeah, you shouldn't do that with anyone. It doesn't matter who you're playing. But I think in my own club, it's not super common, thankfully.
That is
okay.
Yeah, I would say with the mansplaining, as someone who does not win very often, I just learned to ignore it, but I also then can roll my eyes and talk to Leah about it. So that comes back to having the people to be like, oh my goodness. But there are some of us out there that we like to curl, but we don't have trophies. So, and that's okay too. I just want to say, sometimes I just know that maybe one day I'll beat them on the ice. It just wasn't going to be today. I keep coming back and have for 8 years, but it does go back to the support. And my husband's very supportive as well. And I think that's one of the things we've tried in our league. He's very careful, especially at the beginning. It's different now because it's changed over the years, but very careful at matching personalities and things like that, and more prone to putting people who can maybe ignore a little bit better others and stuff like that. And I think that helps, that being conscious of that at some points. Now that we've had a lot of people in the same league for a while, it's less important. We all kind of get used to each other. So it is kind of knowing your group and paying attention to that piece too. So
And I just want to add that, so
It'd be weird if we had a mansplaining
personalities wise, Dina's a lot nicer. And I'm, again, from New Jersey, as you can hear from my accent, and I'm snarky as F. Man, I am just, and
You can
so
say it on this
You can
show.
swear
We
on
don't have
I'm
rules
smart,
here.
I'm snarky as fuck. And if somebody does something, I have no problem cutting them down in front of a bunch of people and embarrassing them. And, you know, it's not always a nice skill to have, but it gets the job done.
No, it's a good skill to have.
No, I don't know. But I think we balance each other out because Dina's,
Yeah.
Dina's the lovely social worker, and I'm over 50 and I don't care anymore. So that's just where I'm at. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we do balance each other out, and then my husband's more on Leah's side of things. But
But he doesn't say it out loud. And then the other thing is the good part for those people that don't know curling it out there, when you play in the front end, you're like, and the skip and the dice are out there talking strategy. You, as a front end person, you 1 and 2 just sit there and cut the shot calls and everything down. And then when they come down and tell you what they're going to call, you're like, yeah, good call.
Yeah, okay, sure, yeah,
It's true. I front end skip constantly.
Right, yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to blow off the steam and get relief.
Plus, everybody's holding a stick.
It's true.
Like, so
It's
it
true.
sort of keeps people well behaved. What about in Detroit? How do you handle mansplaining in Detroit?
I'm going to echo Leslie. I feel like we don't have many people who are really doing that anymore. We do have, every once in a while, you're going to have someone do that, but I would say most people are pretty inclusive and.
All right. So,
I'm gonna say no way.
I want to hope that is absolutely true, and I'm gonna
At least in my experience.
I'm gonna hope and pray for you.
hang my
Detroit.
dozens of Michigan hats on that one thing that you just said, that somehow Detroit is better at eliminating mansplaining.
And I feel like if someone's going to do it, if people are going to call it out, and even if it's not the person on the receiving end of it, someone else next to them is going to call it out. So it gets nipped in the bud pretty quickly.
They are tough. I mean, they survived Detroit.
So I'm gonna say, like, I don't think that Michigan is the place to go correcting women. Let's just say, from my experience, this does not go well for you.
Have you been to Detroit?
Yeah, several hundreds of times. It doesn't go well if you're telling women how they should feel about things in Detroit. So
shout out Detroit women.
maybe your problem fixed itself just by virtue of who y'all are, I guess.
Shout out. I love Detroit curling.
We've had a woman club president for many years now, and I think the men involved in the structure of the club are super open-minded, and I think there's definitely people who try to explain things or override, but I don't think it's gender-based. They do it to men as much as women.
I would agree with that.
Same
thing.
What are we doing wrong on the East Coast?
We are missing it on the coast here.
Swinging a miss. All right, so here's what I want to do, since I'm going to mansplain the rest of this show.
Understood.
We want to take one more break. We got to fit in one more break. And then when we come back, we do want to talk about some of this sort of more national level stuff. And I am very interested in this difference here between like the Midwest and the East Coast here. I thought I would have definitely bet money would have gone the other direction. And I got that way wrong. So
we do pretend we're very liberal out here.
Well, we are, but we vote the right way. We just don't curl the right way, I guess.
Apparently.
So so we want to take one more break, and then when we come back, we do want to talk about national level women's curling initiatives and how we can try to grow the sport amongst folks. And then we also want to, fit in a few more little things here and there, what people have to say about their own individual clubs and stuff. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a break. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Greed is the billionaire that kicks you out to raise the rent. Let's just sample it. Impeach the president. Loop it like a noose. Let it loose on the internet. Add your most intimates. Post it for a millicent. Got you a couple yachts but never been to sea. Got you a big whip, but gotta rent a seat. Never be enough, just imagine 10 to me, like in the tenement where your friendlies, your enemies breathe. Something fishy, man, it must be lent. The opposite of heaven sent. Overspent, bleeding money where the razor when they shoot you in the back. Pew, pew, how the laser went. Tell you more is more and give you evidence. Till you get more than you hesitant. You're still an alien, illegal resident. You wanna raise the bar, then you better set the precedent. Make you do things that you never thought. Make you take things that you never bought. Make you take risks that you never would. Make you make choices that you never should. That's just greed.
I'm waiting.
What are you
Saving
waiting for?
that ticket. Because I love what I have and I want to use what I have.
Greed. Make you go to spots that you never went. Just to show it to your friends, even if it break the bank. Dow Jones raise your average like it's Lebanon. Cash like it's never been the crash so deafening. Rushing into fame like he can't rush the net. One shot, place your bet, this is Russian roulette. Turn on the power like you're 50 Cent, but you're not, you can't be counted on like money never spent. Like a leech, you're the host for the parasite. Make your head hot like a pair of Nikes. Freeloaders wanna come and get some of me, so got a gang of lawyers in case they come and summon me. Every which way, folks are bending me. Every day twisted like a bandit. Everyone cool if we pretend to be, but everything fake knocked off like affinity. It's the evil in the root. They had the weasel in the suit. I know a greedy eye, and when I see a beady eye, then I be the guy that you'll never see go. You're a juvenile, not meant to be. It is what it is if you're meant to be. Put your best foot forward like a centipede. Greed will leave your fan cursed like a Kennedy, falling from the sky high, looking for a remedy. Greed.
That's my fault.
Recordings just got better. Hey, it's Dana from.
All right, welcome back to ChipChat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I am your host, Chip. With me tonight.
Recordings just got better.
Hello.
And that was Brian playing around with music on the things with the production and the stuff, whatever the stuff. Okay, so welcome back to the show. So now we want to talk a little more about sort of at the national level and how clubs are interacting with this. We know that, USA curling has gone through a bit of a challenge with women and sort of recent dust-ups and stuff. We don't want to get too deep into all of that kind of stuff. We did several shows about that already. But what could women's representation do in the modern era of curling at the club level to influence things at the national level? And I want to first toss that out to Leslie, because she's going to understand it more, from that grassroots perspective and growing it at the club level and moving it up to that national level. Oh, she's muted. Hold on. We're going to unmute her.
Who you're talking to?
Leslie. Go ahead, Brian. Unmute her. There we go.
I have a voice.
Yes, women have a voice on this show.
Who knew?
Our sort of model is that we use reps from the club to communicate events and to disseminate information, and we have regional liaisons. And I've heard that the USCA or USA Curling is going to try something similar, to have a men's and women's rep possibly in their clubs to get word out about national events, opportunities, to hear from clubs, to have ways to communicate better with clubs. And our goal is to get as many people as possible involved. We have a ton of events. We start like the All-American, we run in clubs. It's available to anyone, including men in the clubs. They just have to play front end. There are, I think, 15 events available for women nationally, maybe more. From 5 and unders, circuit events, national bonspiels, and then there are tours, and there are a lot of things that people can do at any level.
So I'll mention the circuit because I am a multi-year circuit subscriber, for lack of a better word.
Attendee.
Participant.
Thank you. yeah, I love my women's bonspiel team. It is the best girls' weekend, and we do it multiple times a year. And you can buy into the circuit, and you can win money at the end, and it's super fun. And even if I didn't win a lot of money, I'm like, it was a donation to women's curling, but it kind of gives me a goal.
Oh, she broke the chair.
I should do this chair.
Probably some dude engineered that chair.
But I mean, I'm just your average kind of everyday curler, and I have gotten very involved in USWCA over the last year. And so
how let's say down in North Cackalack, how are we doing things to grow women's curling and move folks from Triangle onto that national level?
Or just onto like the 5 and under level. Like
any kind of involvement in regional bonspiels or
to be fair, I got completely slaughtered by a Triangle team at Mid-Atlantic 2 years ago, and I'm still getting over that. But you guys are putting some really, really great women out
there. The way you remember bonspiels is very different from the way I remember them. I almost never remember the curling part of it at all. I barely remember the warm room part of it.
Okay,
all right.
I mostly remember that we sat in a hot tub at the hotel, and they were delightful women, and then killed us on the ice the next day.
That seems fair. All right, so Triangle folks, what are you doing to grow all of this?
Well, Dina, you talk about, because she's also doing the juniors group. So
yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, part of it is I believe in modeling and like saying, hey, if you're gonna make or want kids to do different things and like learn how to do back end and be good with teams and things like that, then you gotta model it, practice what you preach, kind of thing. But I think like as Leah was saying, we sometimes, it doesn't always work with everybody's schedules, but we've had because we're kind of on a newer club in terms of dedicated ice, we've had people that have been really thoughtful about what instructional things to bring, and so there is opportunities for people to like keep learning. And I think that we don't have a dedicated women's league yet. I don't know if we ever will, but we're kind of figuring it out as we go along. But I think what's interesting is that we do have people that keep coming back, women who keep coming back and keep trying to learn different pieces. So I think it is working a little bit. Maybe it could work better. We do only have one league that has more women in it than men, but that we do have one of those. So I think, yeah. And it was really cool. Like, it was the first time last season, but like looking at like all back end, it was pretty neat to do that. And of course, it's one of those things where you have to kind of do it as a group. It's not just the women doing it. We really appreciate the men who've been supporting this kind of idea as well. So, so I think there are some things going. We keep trying to like get women to the 5 and unders and things like that. But our club is also very different than how it was when I started, when it was a lot smaller. So, and I just do most of the junior stuff, but trying to really provide opportunities for them and showing them that like any of them can do whatever they want with curling. Hopefully, if we can give them the opportunities. So,
let me piggyback off that juniors idea, and I want to toss it to Detroit to talk about this, because I think that one of the ways that we can, from my perspective, I've got three little girls.
Adorable.
Right, and my oldest, she started Middle Rockers last year.
She's so adorable.
This summer, we're getting through, and then in the fall when we turn on the chillers, thanks to your husband, we're gonna hopefully have 2 in. So we're gonna do all of this.
I think my husband's gonna.
And just want to say, we have a triangle curling with the GNCC junior camp, and we take them as young as 10. So if they want to come on down, flyers are open.
We're not 10 yet.
We're not 10 yet, but we'll be there soon.
But
sooner than we'd like.
But in terms of the juniors as a way to grow women's curling, right? Because if we've got more little kids starting curling, then they grow up to become curlers, and that just sort of grows the sport in general. Detroit's got a long history of this.
Detroit's been around for. It is not a mistake that we have a new club and an established club on tonight.
Exactly, and they've got a proud juniors program. So the question here is like, how does the juniors program and the women's league program sort of dovetailed together to increase to get over that 30% threshold, because that's really just a ridiculous number. It's ridiculous.
Okay, so I feel like listening to everyone, I have a couple of things running through my head. So I'll get to juniors, and part of that comes with one of the ways that I think Detroit supports women getting onto that national front is we do rely heavily on our USWCA rep. She's amazing. Bethany is always coming out and telling us information and making sure we know about bond spiels and how they work and when they're happening. To aid in getting people to those national bond spiels, we have something called our Curler Development Fund that is run by the Rockettes. And I think it's important to think about women tend to have a lot of obligations, so it's harder to go to do things. And also when you're starting out curling, it is hard to pay for everything, to fly to a bond spiel, to register for all of the funds. And so we have the Curling Development Fund that our Rockettes members can apply to help defer some of those costs, and we sponsor them to go to that through our different fundraising endeavors. That being said, those funds can also be used, for helping our junior program as well. And we do have, we've got our junior program back up and running after the pandemic. It's really doing well. And some of those juniors join us either as subs on the Women's League, or they competed in our women's bond spiels. They put together, or some of our 5 and under bond spiels where they put together some of the junior curlers. And then I believe they had a women's league skip, or a Rockette skip, for that to help them out there on the ice. So we do have juniors moving up, and many of our women's league members right before women's league is juniors. So they're out on the ice right before women's league teaching our Little Rocks and our junior curlers.
So that's
they're
scheduling.
Yeah.
All right. So it seems clear that there's a path to growth here in terms of growing folks who are curling from a young age and continue on. But it's also, would you say, and this is one I'll put out to the parents on the panel, is there a path to bring parents into curling by way of bringing their children into curling?
So I have a curling baby, so we went the opposite.
Yeah,
so
both of us we were already curlers, and then we had children.
His wife, I have curled on a team with his wife.
And yeah, so like our children were destined to be curlers, but there are definitely people who come to the sport by way of their children. Is there some way to grow that as well?
I think one of the things we've looked at as far as how to do junior outreach, Canada successfully has a program that I can't remember what it is now because I'm getting tired.
It's something in French. Don't worry about it.
They go to it was almost like going to a 4-H club, but it's like a youth group that they actually would go to get kids. My own kids, I know you have to get the kids before they start getting interested in other stuff. You got to get them hooked, and you have to have enough kids in one group that it's fun. You can't have a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old. You need a whole herd of kids of similar age to get them to enjoy it.
Chip individually is actually breeding that entire herd.
We're working on
1 million kids.
I've got 3, and
seems like a million.
We try desperately every weekend to explain to them that it's time to get up, put your kid on. We're going to watch soccer. Then it's going to be over. It's going to be time for college football. And then it's going to be time for more college football. And they don't care.
No, I've met your kids.
They want to know, when are we going to curling?
They also really like tacos.
Yeah, they like tacos and there's a lot of things. But anyway, So the growing the youth
They're
stuff,
all
like,
under 10.
are we reaching out to the children to pull them away from other sports? Or are we saying, okay, this can be part of something else, or like,
I think
what are we doing?
USWCA does a really good job of supporting kind of the juniors growth, and I'd love to hear about that fund from Detroit. But Leslie, if you want to talk about kind of your junior support and outreach and Bonspiels, I know that is something that USWCA has taken on that maybe some other organizations have not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a junior Bonspiel in 3 of our 4 regions every year. It's open to all ages up to 21. And there is support for travel to some of those Bonspiels. There's support for developmental curlers. We're not really trying to support youth that are already in a high performance club, but certainly money for kids that want to pay for their parents or other coach to go to a clinic. Those are things. I think also one of the really good programs that's out there, Laura Ressler, who's in Centerville, and she's a very successful curler. She gets the kids out there, and she's said, I bribe them with chicken nuggets and other foods.
This is right.
Tacos.
I
would use tacos. Get them out there.
We don't have a problem with getting them to curling. It's getting them to come home. It's a hard.
That's good.
Like all summer, the question has been, when does curling start? And I said, when we turn the ice on.
We're doing swimming class across the parking lot.
We are skipping swimming.
Every day, every time we go to swim class, and are we going to curling?
We have practice. We're just scrubbing the floors.
That
just
also
like,
works.
Scrub the floors until you get better at curling.
Slightly sexist, but we're going to let that go.
Well, we're all scrubbing the floors.
Okay.
We're all trying to. I'm the only dude in the house.
It's true. And I'm the only girl in my house, so we get along.
All right. So let me throw this one out to the panel as maybe the last, question of the night, really, is what would each of you like to see happen either at a club level or at a national level or, within regional organizations to grow women's curling in
your club,
general.
other clubs,
anywhere you want to see it. And let's start. We'll go from north to south. Let's go to Detroit first.
That's a big question. Honestly, I just think making sure time is equitable for, if you're going to have dedicated ice for men's and women's, making sure that dedicated ice time is equitable across the scheduling for ice time is important, and making sure those opportunities are available to everyone. Because when you have more of different groups, just having that time available for everyone to practice and get that experience.
All right,
let's go Chicago.
I think I would value encouraging people to play. Get out and play. If you lose, you lose. Who cares? But the way you get better is to play. And my favorite part of curling, and probably the reason that I'm still very actively playing after 40 some years in the sport, is the people. I look forward at every spiel to seeing people, meeting new people, and there's nothing like the feel of walking into a club.
I'm going to piggyback on that. I walked into Mid-Atlantic last year. It was like cheers, and I was Norm. I walked there, it was like, stop! I have never felt this good in my life.
Also, nobody loses at curling, right?
I keep breaking.
Because you get free beer. If you lose, you get beer.
All right, Potomac's next, Bill.
All right, Potomac is next geographically. So sorry, Triangle. You all got to wait. Go ahead. As the representatives.
So what can clubs do is check your atmosphere. Because does it look like the Midwestern mom's basement that all us women have been told to avoid?
Oh. I mean, right now the Midwest is beating us in terms of inclusivity. But
I'm just saying, does it... And I've been to some of the newer clubs actually look freaking phenomenal.
Sure.
But some of these older clubs, I'm like, this looks like the place that, my parents told me to not go too late at night because
Okay.
it might be dangerous. So check your atmosphere. And women are very social. Not sure if you've noticed.
I may have noticed.
But have you built that in? So our club, we've been having summer workouts every Tuesday. We did 1999 buns of steel the other day. We laughed the entire time, and laughing burned more calories than the actual workout video, turns out. But making sure you're really fostering that community and allowing that time for women to grow.
Fostering. Yeah.
To grow in the sport without competition being part of the equation.
Absolutely.
So learning as you go is kind of business as usual. And obviously that's not working. We're still stuck at 30%. So
how do we grow?
You have to do something different.
Yeah, dedicating ice time.
You have to give that like dedicated safe practice time. I'm not drinking because I didn't say safe space.
That's fair.
The mentors that are women who will be patient, who will understand where you're coming from. Shout out to Giselle, Women's League member who came one late draw, and she said, I'm falling down every time I deliver. That woman delivered 400 rocks in one night, and she must have been black and blue the next day, bruised, because she fell so many times. So by the end of the night, she could throw a rock without falling down. And kudos to her, but had she not had that space to do that, who knows if she would have quit because she was frustrated or what. But that's my 2 cents, is check your physical surroundings and make sure you're not in a dark basement, even if it's not a basement, it looks like a basement.
We get it.
And have that space for women to learn.
All right, down to Carolina. What can we do to grow women's curling?
Well, I'm going to chime in first, Nina. My thought is it's not even just, I guess because we're a new club, it's growing curling, period. And to me, I come from a point of view that everybody that walks in the room should feel welcome, and they should feel, I like to feel like a family, right? And then the atmosphere when they're in a league, it's fun, it's loose, they're learning, not too intense, not too crazy, but and then let relationships organically happen. Try to keep it fun and light. I guess that's what I'm saying. And when we started as a club and we didn't have enough members and we wanted to grow it, when you saw a new face or you saw somebody that's confused, go over there and talk to them, make them feel comfortable. I mean, my style is, self-deprecating. I fall. I'm not graceful. I don't slide like I'm a Canadian. I don't do any of that stuff. So when new people are learning, try to tell them that and make them comfortable. Look, I've been doing this for 12, 13 years, and look how awkward I look. Don't worry about it, and to remind them that it's very hard when you're an older person to learn something new, right? Like when we were all kids, we learned things and we made mistakes and we weren't so hyper. But like when you hit a certain age to learn something new and really suck at something for a long time, it's very hard as an adult. So I just try to keep it loose, keep reminding them, you don't have to be perfect. Don't worry. Look at me. I suck. Don't worry about it. That kind of thing.
All right, and Dina, your thoughts?
I would just say I do it by trying to support juniors and knowing the next generation. And so just getting that support from our club to keep growing a junior program. We have a pretty good one so far for the size of our club. And so I do appreciate the USWA who like help and really do support the juniors as well in different ways. So we just want to keep trying to take advantage of those opportunities and really kind of grow from that way. Because a point you made earlier, like we've definitely had people who they came with their kids, the kids didn't fit for curling, but the parents did. And so there's lots of different ways to grow it through the juniors. And so that's where I would say we could spend some more time and energy. And we definitely are trying to do that as a club.
I think these are all great ideas. We are going to take all of them, and we have a board meeting coming up. So we're gonna play this episode for them.
I hope they're listening.
Speaking of which, now is a great time for everybody to give their contacts for their clubs. So we'll go the other direction. We'll go south to north. right? All right, so Triangle, where can everybody follow the club and yourselves and everything to get the information for you? We'll start with Dina. Go ahead.
I don't do social media, but if you go Triangle Curling, you'll find something on the internet. That's all I can tell you.
There you
All
go.
those internets.
All right, go ahead, Leah.
Yeah, no, we have people that do the social media, and we have, of course, triangle.com is our website, and then we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. I think, yeah, although I don't know if we're on Threads, or I don't know what they switched over to yet, but yeah, go to the .com and you'll find us. Just search.
Search Triangle Curling and you'll find them. All right. Yeah. Geographically, I guess that's us next, but we'll skip us and we'll hit that at the end. Chicago.
Chicago Curling Club has a Facebook page, Instagram page, website, lots of Learn to Curls at Chicago. Yeah, and do a lot also with our regional organization, the Midwest Curling Association.
And where can they follow the organization that you until very recently led?
United States Women's Curling Association also has a Facebook page and not so much on Instagram, and a website. And we're trying to be more present on social media, but really encourage people to reach out who have things to share. Stacy's helping out with the social media, which I greatly appreciate.
Occasionally, called Stacy, who knows how to do the social medias and is committed to the mission. So I think, I don't know, Stacy, if you met Leslie, but you should probably get in contact with her.
I am already on the social media team for USW.
Yay!
They are
really appreciate it.
There you go. All right, and up in Detroit, where everything is better because it's the right color blue with a little bit of maize.
I gotta win the beat event there.
All right, what can we do to follow you?
You can go to our website, DetroitCurlingClub.com. We're on Facebook and I believe Twitter, and you can watch videos of our leagues on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
the live streams, of course. All right, you can of course tune into the Potomac live stream.
At CurlDC is on Twitter
CurlDC.org.
and CurlDC.org. The USWCA is at Heart of Curling on Twitter, and yes, I am newly involved in the social media of USWCA.
Congratulations!
I'm very excited to start doing some things with them. I also previously worked with our curling club at CurlDC, and I'm Stacy at Curl Me Purple.
All right, and we want to say thank you on this show to all of our guests. We want to say thanks to our radio partners, the IOC, MI5, and UCLA. Thanks to NOTN for keeping us on for another week via Zoom, although we haven't checked. Thanks to our digital media meatball, Isaac Elam, and thanks to our home on the interwebs, CoPlayMedia.com. And thanks, as always, to our family here at Beltway Radio for making it sound as smooth as arena ice. All right, where can everybody follow you again one time on the social medias?
I'm Stacy, and I'm at Curl Me Purple on Twitter and Stacy Bishop on Facebook.
All right, you can find me and the show still on Twitter to the extent that we are on at ChipChat RR. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram, and now on Threads at Rip ChipChat, and you can find me on Blue Sky at Chip because I got that back.
And we'll be posting some cool links, and it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be all there. You can find everything you need, and it'll all be there. Anyway, I'm Chip. That's Stacy. That's Brian. You've been listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond. Sweet. Great job.